cost of living crisis has dogged the Albanese government since it won office. But Treasury now predicts inflation could fall to 3% by Christmas. The expected return to the Reserve Bank's target band of 2 to 3% this year rather than next will help reduce pressure on interest rates. But it also signals a slowing economy, which could leave more Australians out of a job. Political reporter Evelyn Manfield joins us now to talk through these numbers. Evelyn, what's Treasury expecting in the months ahead in terms of inflation?
Well, Gemma, when the Treasurer Jim Chalmers hands down his budget tomorrow evening, it's expected to show that inflation is moderating at a faster rate than Treasury was predicting 6 months ago. So it was expected 6 months ago that by mid-year this year, inflation would be at 3.75%. It's now forecast to be at 3.5% by mid-year. And I should point out that isn't as good as the budget last year was expecting, so 12 months ago, but it is better than what was expected 6 months ago. Now, Treasury has also said that inflation could drop to within that target rate of between 2 and 3% by the end of this year. And that's quite different to what the Reserve Bank was forecasting just last week. They were saying that inflation will return to the top of the top end of that target rate of between 2 and 3% by the end of 2025. Now, both the Finance Minister Katie Gallagher and the Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume have responded this morning to why that is. Take a listen.
The difference really is that Treasury have been able to incorporate some of the decisions that we've taken in the budget into their forecasts. Obviously, that's not available to the RBA ahead of the budget, and they're both made independently. So those forecasts from Treasury are the ones that will be published in the budget, and they take into consideration all of the set of decisions that we've taken.
Well, it's certainly very different from the RBA's forecast that was made only 6 days ago. And I suppose it's really up to the Treasurer now to tell us exactly how the government is going to bring inflation back down sooner.
Now, Treasurer Jim Chalmers says in terms of inflation, it's not mission accomplished. Of course, he says that there is still work that needs to be done in terms of addressing the cost of living crisis that Australians are facing. Now, I did want to touch on economic growth as well, because the outlook there is that it's worsening. So the forecast for economic growth has been revised down to 2% for the next financial year, and 6 months ago that forecast was at 2.25%. So a bit of a revision down there as well. So those are some of the big numbers that we can expect to see in tomorrow's budget. Of course, all will be revealed at 7:30 tomorrow. We're just getting a sort of drip feed of information, if you like, for now, and have been for the past weeks or months really too. Now, some of the policies that we do know about in terms of the budget tomorrow are things like the Stage 3 tax cuts. We did hear from the Finance Minister Katie Gallagher this morning that an additional package that supports people in terms of the cost of living through the next 12 months or so is expected. Of course, we've also been hearing in recent weeks about the changes to HECS debts and also more funding assistance for women and children leaving domestic violence situations as well. But hang in there, all will be revealed tomorrow night, Gemma.
Political reporter Evelyn Manfield, thank you. For the first time ever, a former spy for China's notorious secret police, one of the most powerful arms of the country's intelligence apparatus, has gone public, exposing the covert and illegal operations he was ordered to carry out on foreign soil, including in Australia. In a major investigation by the ABC's Echo Hui, the spy exposes how China has used its global network over the last 2 decades to surveil, silence and kidnap those it deems enemies of the state.
你听会儿我下面的诉求。
A Chinese spy handler messages his undercover operative.
想啥子办法把他勾到柬埔寨或者老挝。
Both handler and agent are part of China's powerful secret police force. A vast global network running covert operations on foreign soil, including right here in Australia.
甚至有的时候可能睡觉的时候就门口就有脚步声。我觉得我在澳洲并不安全。
Now, for the first time, a former Chinese secret police agent reveals his identity.
我是不得不为秘密警察工作，强迫为他们工作。
He exposes the undercover operations he was ordered to carry out and the threat to Australia's national security.
These are illegal operations, undeclared to the Australian government, to the Australian authorities.
He reveals the tactics used to hunt down and silence those China deemed enemies of the state.
你有证据？哎。
You have a foreign state obviously following this young fellow, and then he dies. This is very concerning.
Are you now a target?
甚至我也不排除在动员当地的一些特工啊，试图来绑架。
Investigative journalist Echo Hui joins us in the studio now. Echo, what is China's secret police and what operations do they undertake?
So they're one of the most powerful arm of the Chinese intelligence apparatus. They sit within the Ministry of Public Security, which is their national policing and security agency, which allow them to have both the power to spy and infiltrate group, but also prosecute them.
What did we learn from this former spy about the sort of operations that are being undertaken here in Australia?
So we have learned from them that they have really operate on a global scale, not just in China, but also in Cambodia, Thailand, Canada, and Australia.
Now, by coming out and speaking to the ABC, and as we saw there in that clip, this former Chinese spy has put himself at great danger. Why has he decided to speak out?
So he have elaborated that actually pretty well in the program tonight. And I think for most of all, he really believed the public have the right to know about the secret war. He has also been a dissident himself, and he was forced into working for them for the past 15 years.
Does his testimony raise concerns about Australia's national security?
Absolutely, because our investigation also found there are actually 16 Australian residents in the past decade has been secretly repatriated back to China without the permission or knowledge of our authorities.
Echo, thank you. That's Echo Hui, investigative journalist with Four Corners. You can catch Four Corners tonight at 8:30 on ABC TV and, of course, on iView. Lawyers for former teacher and rugby league player Chris Dawson will return to court today as they attempt to overturn his murder conviction. Dawson is currently serving a lengthy jail sentence for murdering his wife Lynette Sims. For more on this, reporter Jessica Rendell joins us now from outside the Supreme Court in Sydney. Jess, what grounds are the lawyers expected to argue today in this appeal?
Good morning, Gemma. Well, there are 5 grounds that lawyers are expected to argue across the course of this appeal, and one of those is a forensic disadvantage that they believe Chris Dawson suffered by defending the murder decades after it had occurred. They argue that the original judge fell to error when he didn't consider this forensic disadvantage. Now, they're also expected to argue that the guilty verdict was unreasonable and unable to be supported by evidence. This is quite a high-profile case and one that would be familiar to many Australians, and we've been covering it for quite some time now. Chris Dawson is currently serving a maximum 24-year jail sentence. He's 75 years old, and that jail sentence is for the murder of his wife Lynette Sims. Although Lynette's body was never found, a strong consequential case was convinced a Supreme Court judge that he did in fact murder her in 1982 so that he could pursue an unfettered relationship with a student. Now, this appeal of this conviction is expected to start at around 10:15 this morning and run for about 3 days this week, Gemma.
Well, thank you.